If you're watching this video, you probably fall into one of two categories. One, now or in the past you've been sent a project to work on and the guitar DI is so terrible that there is no way to get a good tone out of it. Or two, you're opening an old project of yours that you don't feel like re-recording, but you've gotten much better at recording and feel like it's lacking. Either way, you're left with a bad guitar or bass DI, which leaves you with the worst thing you can have in rock and metal, a bad guitar tone. But don't worry, my friends, I've been there and I've also had to salvage some of the worst DIs ever in the past. So much so that it's easier than ever to notice what makeshift things go into making a crappy DI work. By the end of this episode, you'll have the lowdown on how to still get a solid guitar tone even when working with crappy stems. So what's happening, fam? Miami here with JST, and the T is for turtleneck. Drip game crazy. Anyways, today we are past the point of just changing our guitar strings. Everything has already been tracked and it's time to deal with the repercussion. And let me be really clear here. Any guitar can have a bad DI. It doesn't matter if it's some cheap import guitar or it's my Gibson made in the good old red, white, and blue USA. You know what else is red, white, and blue? The subscribe and like button. Make sure to tap those to support our content and hit the bell to be notified when we drop new videos. Transition game is still crazy. On to the first problem, transient information. Most of the time when I get sent stems, the first thing I notice is how awful the pick attack is on the notes. And this is usually due to a few things. Picking technique, the type of pick the person is using, tongue twister, and the level of skill of the player. Well, there's nothing we can do about these things now since we already have the stems, but what this causes is lack of dynamic in the guitar. And since the guitar tracks are already extremely distorted and compressed in the first place, we can't really afford this loss of transient information. So what I want you to do is grab a transient designer. I like to use JST Transify for this, but any can kinda work. I like this one because you can select the frequency range, which is lacking the transient information. In the example I'm about to show you, it's in the mids. I'm not gonna lie, I tracked this a while back and my picking game was not where it needed to be. Sounded decent, but fixing the transients really brought it to life. Let's check it out. Did you notice how much more present and aggressive that lead became? It didn't take much to make it very in your face. So yeah, this is an easy way to add some juice to a track that might have been underperformed. 2. Out of tune guitars. Now, this one drives me crazy like no other. It's pretty easy to pick out an out of tune guitar, but it can often slide into a mix when people aren't paying too much attention. That's why I wrote this for you. I can't help it. I just fucked up. Now, if you were paying attention, you would know that lead guitar in this example is slightly detuned on the lower note. So what do we do about this? Time to open up Melodyne. See how much better that sounded? But what if it wasn't just single notes like that and you needed to do it to fix a single note out of a chord? Well, then you would have to switch into polyphonic mode inside of Melodyne, in which it shows every note being played and you can adjust individual notes. In this example, the higher note is sharp and the lower note is flat. So trying to tune them in a monophonic way wouldn't really work, would it? Check this out. That's what she said. There's a lot of finesse that goes into making sure a guitar DI is perfect when it's getting sent to you from someone that most likely isn't checking their tuning every few takes. This is one of the things that will make you not worry so much, but in reality, it shouldn't be the first thing you have to go to. These are in case of emergency type scenarios. On to our next topic. Electromagnetic interference and 60-cycle hum. If you're unfamiliar with EMI, that's electromagnetic interference, and the closer our guitars and pickups are to electronics, the more likely you're gonna hear this. This became a huge guitar issue with the birth of the bedroom producer, because guess what? Your guitar is right next to your computer. Tons of things can cause this issue, but this is the most common reason. Isotope denoise is great at identifying this and removing it. Pay attention how the closer I bring my guitar to the screen and desk, how much more interference there is. It's the worst when it's paired with 60-cycle hum. I'm going to show you how it sounds, and then I'm going to output only the interference with denoise. This will be what you need to remove, and that will depend on the source itself. You'll have to figure out the parameters. Sixty-cycle hum is inherent in single coil pickups and can definitely ruin what's going on in a song if there needs to be silence at a part. Luckily, the good people over at Ozone have figured out the fix for this. Using isotope dehum, you're only a click away from removing that annoying frequency forever. Just so that you can be sure you're identifying it properly, take a listen to me making dehum active and then inactive. EQing before the amp. When you have a DI that won't cooperate with your amp, sometimes the best decision you can make is EQ the DI itself. I'm assuming that most people watching this use amp sims, and one of the beauties of that is you can throw on an EQ before the amp sim and see how it affects the tone. Most people recording at home are using low budget gear, so it wouldn't be odd to assume that EQ curve isn't going to be the nicest, and that's assuming they didn't make any mistakes along the way that would degrade the signal even further than that. What a lot of people don't know is certain amp sims react based on the information being received. If there's a ton of missing low end, the amp sim isn't going to respond the same way that you want it to, and that also works with high end. And if a simple EQ adjustment doesn't take care of this for you, it's time to try out EQ matching. You're going to want to take the guitar DI that you have and EQ match it to one that you know is a really good one. That way you can be sure that you're getting the sound that you want. It's not going to fix transients or anything like that, but it'll get you the tone. And the last thing, retracking. When all else fails, hate to say it, but might be time to retrack it, man. If you can't salvage it with an EQ match, transient designing, tuning, etc., there's probably no hope. But hey, this isn't the worst thing in the world. If it's for another person, you can give them the option of retracking or hiring someone to retrack it. And if it's your own project, it's time to bite the bullet. You have to think about it this way. How much are you willing to let the music suffer? While there are people out here spending every dollar that they can to record perfectly in high-end studios, how do you expect to compete using budget gear in your bedroom if the takes aren't even solid? This is the point at which you have to decide if these other tips were enough to save you from having to reach out, or if it's time to start over from scratch and retract this thing. So let's go over all of these one more time. Transient information, out-of-tune guitars, electromagnetic interference and 60-cycle hum, EQing before the amp. Oh yeah, and retracking. Hey, I've given you the lowdown to save that DI. I hope it sparks some ideas at the very least, but most importantly, you've been able to properly identify these issues when they come up in day-to-day life. Some of us are seasoned pros and some of us are mixing for the first time, but I truly feel a video like this can give a beginner a leg up. Did I miss anything? What do you do to save guitars that were already tracked? Leave it in the comments below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you're an engineer on the come up, give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, you only have to do it one time. And tap that bell for notification, so when a video drops, you know the location. Till next time, I am out of here. Mic drop. Except as engineers we know, I'd never really drop this thing, because that get really expensive, even if it is a piece of sure. Later.